Hello again. Hey, so I'm continuing this series about kids IVF, and this is part three. So we've gone through the whole process of finding a partner. Here we are. I'm married. We both decided we wanted a family, and that was why we got together and got married. And for 6 months, trying to have kids, nothing, and then maybe another 6 months, the world kind of collapsed. A lot of different stuff happened. So put everything off. Started again. Waiting to try and do uh, to to have kids. So another 6 months. So it's like 18 months now total. And we're at this point where it's like something's not right. My wife got tested, and we found out there were some issues there. Nothing major, but there were some things we needed to kind of like tackle. And found out also I really should have gone, way back. Um, so I should have really noticed that I hadn't had kids up until like 37, even though I had many partners, and something was going a bit awry, and not even sure when it could have possibly started. I never really thought about it. But basically, I came to a clinic. It was a kind of like a med clinic, like a sort of esoteric medicine clinic with a little bit of, what do they call it? What do they call it? It's kind of like not a completely esoteric, but it had like a few weird kind of practices, basically. Um, and anyway, getting to the point, I went in and I did the test and I got the results back, and I said azoospermia. Right? Azoospermia means no sperm. And I remember remember that I kind of like, it was like the wind kind of got out of me, in a strange sense. It was like this kind of sense like you couldn't really breathe, on a spiritual level. It was really, really weird. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's like you're kind of like gasping for air, trying to find out what's going. Oh, what this means. You're kind of like in this whole new space. So you had this kind of point of view, and then you went like, oh, over here. I guess the first thing that I did, I went to talk to the doctor, after I got the results. We kind of straight away, I'm like thinking, geez, what am I going to do if I can't have kids? So, over like a 2 week period, it was really, really frustrating. You couldn't really do much to figure out what was going on. So I got more tests. I got hormone tests done. I've got genetic tests done. I got physical examinations, all these things. And basically, it was like, this is idiopathic. There is nothing we can find that could be the cause of this. And the doctor actually said, look, you really should do this test again, at another clinic that has got more accurate, equipment, and is better equipped in general. It was like a more. So we went to this large hospital, this IVF hospital, a clinic, in Russia, and we did another sample, and thankfully, this is really, for there are steps that you can take from azoospermia to possibly get to having children, but it's difficult. You need to actually, you know, do a few things. So they said, like, we've done these tests. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong. Do another, verify your count. And I went back and I did another count, and basically, I wasn't as fit as I am now. I wasn't really doing exercise. I wasn't eating really well. I wasn't taking those supplements and vitamins that they recommend. But I still got something, which basically meant that with the count that I had, and basically issues that we had, it would have we could possibly have had a child, but it could have taken years, right? So we're like, well, we don't really want to wait. So at that point, it was this 2 week period plus another kind of month of more, and now of more tests and checking and all these kind of things. And during that time, I actually considered, well, not having kids. It was really weird because it's you kind of didn't really think how much you would miss having kids until you can't do it. It's really strange. It's like if somebody tells you, well, you couldn't, maybe not have kids. You keep trying, nothing happens. It's kind of like boiling frog. You're kind of slowly getting to the point where it's like, well, it's too late now because you're in your 50s, 60s, you haven't had kids, and it's probably better just to leave it. But for me, it was like, you can't have kids because you have azoospermia. So that month of, tests and checking and everything was like, well, what the hell? Why did this happen? What's going on? So when we found out that I had really something was wrong, right? And it's not really clear what it was. And it's likely there was some kind of blockage in the scrotum, like the testicle area. There's something that wasn't working because my testosterone levels were fine. All other indicators for hormones were fine. So there was just the production, something along the line there was just not right. It could have been overheating. So they said that there's something that is causing overheating. So, but then again, I didn't really, even though I worked in a sedentary lifestyle, there was no real cause for that. There wasn't a lot of heat. A lot of people working in sedentary lifestyles have kids. So that wasn't really the major issue. So it's definitely something physical, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And they just said, your best bet is to go and do something called ICSI. And what ICSI is, there's like different stages, right? So normally, if you can't have kids, with just normal intercourse, you first try what they call they collect sperm, and then they do artificial, they try to, what do they call? I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but they do an injection into the cervical canal of the sperm that's collected to try and push it in as far as possible. And then the next step is that they do you collect the sperm, you collect the eggs, and then they do like a swim test on the sperm, and basically the sperm that gets the egg, that's it, right? Then there's ICSI, and so what ICSI is that they actually do the spin testing, which is like instead of the sperm spinning into the egg, they do a swim test. And they select the best sperm that they can find from that swim test. It's like a spinning thing, and then I think the sperm swim against this thing, and then they get that, and then they inseminate the egg that way. So that was the first part, right? So you kind of we're at the stage where we had to do ICSI because there wasn't that many sperm, and it was my issue more so than it was my wife's issue. So my wife had other things that were going on that we could just fix with hormone therapy. But for me, because there was no way that they knew, there was nothing that in my numbers or in my analysis that was off. They couldn't find a treatment for it. So they said the best bet, if you really want to have kids soon, do this. And so we did. The process was pretty straightforward. You go to a collection center. We first found a good clinic that we were happy with. We went to a collection center, and that process, kind of went forward. So the next video, I'll talk about the process of IVF for us and how that happened. But I want to talk about the psychological impact of IVF on finding out that you need IVF. For me and maybe other guys, and coping mechanisms that might help you kind of work through this. And also, fortunately for me, and for certain other people, maybe it's a bit different, but me and my wife were like, okay, we're on the same page here. We kind of wanted kids, but, I didn't want to use, others. If I didn't have any sperm, if I was really azoospermic and they couldn't do anything, I didn't want to use sperm from someone else. I don't think I could emotionally be connected to a child that was from somebody else's sperm. It's really, some men can, right? So I have actually watched videos of other men who have gone through this and have actually, gone and done this. But I couldn't do it. I'm like, I just can't. I would not be a good father to that child. And so in that case, it's better off not doing it, right? You're really, unless you can say to yourself, I'm going to be happy taking care of this child, it really is difficult. So a lot of people who say, if you're having kids young and you're not ready and you don't want it, especially for women may be a bit different, but because of the emotional attachment and it's just different. It's different. Men obviously still do have hormonal changes when a child is born, but if at the back of my mind, I kept on thinking, this isn't really my kid, I'm just looking after somebody else's. I'm not continuing myself through this person in the way that I guess maybe I'm programmed to believe. So you kind of have to understand yourself, and you have to be firm on your beliefs. If you feel that this isn't what you want, then you have to say that. You can't lie to yourself, because it's going to cause a lot of heartache, a lot of pain and trouble for you and your partner further down the line. So first thing to try and do is try to understand what it is that you really want. I would have rather not have had kids than have had someone else's kid, even though it would have been my wife's. And she was understanding of that, and that's I think that was really good that she was. It would have been difficult for her because she could have had kids. That was the worst case scenario. We kind of thought about adopting. I think I would have been better with adopting than with. It's really strange. So this is another thing, right? I would have been happier with adopting somebody else's kid than to have, a, a kid that's half mine. It's so strange, isn't it? I can't explain it. So basically, I might be, maybe it's a bit of selfishness that my wife, seeing my wife there, that it is her child, but not mine. But here I am looking after it. But if it's both her and I, and it's not our child in the sense that it's not our child genetically, then I would have been okay with that. I understand that may not be ideal or the right thing, but that's how I felt. And dealing with that fact that, okay, well, there are other things you can do. And so we started looking at people that, that did not have kids in life and how they dealt with it. And, they could not have had kids and how they dealt with it. So that was really important, to just look at people. And then I started, once I found out that I was able to have kids, I really got down to, what do I need to do to give myself the best chance? And it was scary because at the same time you're like the odds of IVF are like not that high. For us it was okay, but I jumped on the forums, I jumped on Reddit, I jumped on different places, I watched YouTube videos, and there were so many heartbreaking stories just watching people go through the process, and it just takes so much out of them. So having kids, it's in and of itself is an ordeal, but doing IVF, and especially the first part, so seeing that ahead was like this ominous step, and we kind of like, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We decided on a plan. So try to find what it is you want and work on a plan towards what it is you want. And don't, and stick to that. You emotionally, if you keep trying to cling on to something that you want but you can't get, it just wears you out. So having that a decision and just accept it and move on really helps. So being decisive, moving forward, having a plan, and just doing what you can to give yourself the best chance. So what I did is, I took the vitamins, I did the exercise, I did whatever I could to physically reduce the heating in that area. The process I'm going to talk about in the next video, but emotionally, it did take a month and a half at least to try and settle. And even then, that whole process continued on for years, right? So you have to prepare yourself for the long run, with IVF. And there's no guarantee that it'll work. It can be the luck of the draw. There's so many unknowns. Generally, if you're younger, it is much easier for men and for women. So if you can, as a guy, do these tests early, get your sperm checked in your early 20s, do it. I'm sure that they would have found something that early. Because, there was definitely situations where, there could have been, me having kids in my early 20s, but it just didn't happen. And this is likely the reason why it didn't happen. Well, guys, I really hope you found this insightful. If you've come here for this series, please do continue watching. Subscribe to this. I will continue on with more information and insights. Just as a summary, I found out I was azoospermic, and then did additional tests. No reason for that to be the case. No obstructions, no hormonal imbalances, nothing. No, place. Like ultrasounds were all good. I got another test that came out as like low morphology, low morphology, low movement, and low count. Everything was kind of like really low values. And I'll talk about the process and what I did to improve those numbers. And then emotionally, like I said, get yourself set up for being decisive, stick to a plan and accept it. And don't don't try to get yourself attached to things that you know you don't have necessarily any control over, because emotionally it'll just wear you out. And the whole process is emotionally heavy. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel either way, whether you decide to have kids and go for IVF and then it doesn't work, or it does work, or you decide not to have kids. There is so many people that are on that same path that you can join a community of that. But the big thing is the earlier you do your tests, the better. The earlier you find this out, the better. Don't wait until your 30s, until things get more difficult. Yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you at the next video. Bye.